Chapter 4.2 Day 1 Solving System of Linear Equation by Substitution Introduction. So you're going to write what this means, what the substitution means to you. So you're going to fill that out. For the next one is given the two equations 3x plus 2y equals 12, y equals 4x minus 5. So which one is isolated? There are two equations right now. Which equation is isolated? So we can see that the y equation, this one is isolated. Now we can see that y is equal to 4x minus 5. That means that in other equation you can substitute 4x minus 5 for y because they both are equal to each other. So if this is y, it means that you can use 4x minus 5 for y place. So for the first problem, this y is isolated. So it means that y is 2x minus 9. So you can use this y value in the first equation. So rewrite the first equation as it is. For y, instead of y, you just put a bracket around it so that you know that in this place, you are actually using its value, that is 2x minus 9. So we're going to put here 2x minus 9. In letter B, the y is again isolated. So you're going to use this y value and plug it into the first equation. So the first equation is 6x minus 2 times, and we put a bracket around y because we're going to use the value that is 2x minus 7. So we are not going to solve this, we are just going to do the practice on substituting. So let's do letter C here again. This is first equation, this is the second equation. Out of these two, you're going to recognize which one is isolated. So I highlighted this one because y is isolated in this equation. Now I'm going to use the first equation and I'm going to plug it in the y value, that is 8 minus 2x, into the first equation. Again, we don't have to solve, so we'll just leave it like that. For letter D, I highlighted the isolated variable, that is y, and I'm going to use the y value 10x minus 3x into my first equation, and I'm going to plug it in. Letter E is different from all these questions that we just did because in this case the x is isolated. So the x is isolated. I'm going to rewrite the first equation. And use the x value 3y minus 7 into my first equation. So question letter F, you're going to have this x by itself because x is isolated. Now you're going to use this x value and plug it in here in the first equation. So this is your new equation after plugging in. Now for letter G, the isolated equation or variable is x, and I'm going to use the first equation to plug it in. So I use the first equation, and in place of x, I use this value 3 plus 7y. So next thing is that I highlighted every variable that is isolated. So all you have to do is to plug it into the other equation. So all the highlighted ones are the ones that you're going to use to plug it into the other equation. So you're going to pause this video and try the rest of the problems and then play it again to match the answers. So for letter H, you're plugging in the x value into the first equation, and that's your answer. For letter I, you're plugging in this y value because this is isolated into this equation, and you made this whole equation into x. In this case, x is isolated. You're using the x value 22y minus 9 into this equation, In this case, x is isolated, so you're using the x value and plugging it in here. In this case, y is isolated, you're using the y value and plugging it in here. Y value is isolated again, and you're plugging it in here. Again, this one is x is isolated, so you're using the x value and plugging it in here. Y equals 4x. So y is isolated, you're using the y value 4x and plugging it into the second equation.